Kathy Lucid.
Here.
Gary Turner.
Here.
Allison Zeidel.
Here.
Kim Pickering. For present, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. So we call the meeting to order with a quorum. First item on our agenda today is the review and the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was August 20th, 2024. Did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes?
Memorize them.
Well, thank you. You could just recite them.
I'll move to approve them.
They are short.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of August 20, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Financials. Beth, would you please review the financials with us?
Absolutely. So as you'll see, as we're starting to wind down the year with our allocation area number 1, we do still have funding outstanding for some of our projects, as well as our second bond payment for the year will be made on the others. As you'll recall, for the Midwest Industrial Park, that transfer occurs at the end of the year. So you do see that revenue bond total that will be transferred to make that bond payment to the Industrial Park Fund. So at this time, the amount that we have remaining for projects is $3,047,185.02. We do have the outstanding obligation to Richmond Community Schools, which is $553,000, as well as the $3.3 million pledge to the project at 6th and Main.
Beth, we still haven't gotten a request from Richmond, from the schools, right?
No, we
Okay.
still have not received a request from the schools.
And is there any update on the former hospital?
There are conversations occurring with the former hospital as we look to get that project completely closed out. Last week, the environmental consultants were on site taking additional soil samples in moving forward towards completing the remediation of that project.
Have they actually started moving dirt?
No,
And do they know when they will?
no.
Answered my question about timetables. We will move on.
With the Certified Technology Park, you'll see that we had a nice infusion into the Certified Technology Park Fund. That is from the sale of our property at the industrial park. So we received proceeds of $1,192,961.96 for the sale of that property. You will see that we now have no anticipated revenue for the Certified Technology Park, since the only revenue we were receiving was from the lease of that property.
That turned out to be a very good move in the long run,
Yes.
because we were able to get lease payments and get a nice return on our investment there.
Yes. So currently available for new projects is $2,250,415.72. As we look at the Johns Manville Fund, with that, we have an available amount for projects of $1,891,547.67. You will see a request coming before you in January for match for community crossings projects that will be eligible for funding from the Johns Manville TIF, as well as TIF allocation area 1. Those estimates are being prepared by the street department currently.
Do you mean, I'm sorry, the last statement you said, I don't know what you mean. We're taking some from this and some from the,
Yes.
okay, sorry.
Yes, so
So one project, but it'll be split between the two?
there will be multiple roads that will be identified, and the roads that are identified that are located within the TIF allocation area will be paid from that fund, and the ones that are eligible to be paid from the Johns Manville Fund would request from that.
Okay, thank you.
And with the Heartland Fund, with that one, we simply, as the funding comes in, we send that to the trustee to make those payments. So currently, the balance is $28,121.19 for other fees that may occur there. And with the Midwest Industrial Park, you'll see that that amount matches the amount that we have on our allocation area 1 for that TIF revenue bond payment.
Very Very good. Any questions in regards to the financials?
When will we be able to release the $1 million on the Reed property? Or when, put another way, when can we expect Reed to contribute $1 million to that project?
Reed has indicated that they will be making that contribution when the environmental restrictive covenants are placed on the property.
A couple years from now.
So we don't know. Okay. Any other questions in regards to the financials? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the financials as of November 30th, 2024. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Financials are approved. Thank you. Seeing that we have no old business, we will move into new business, and we have two resolutions before us today. The first resolution is Resolution Number 5, 2024, Resolution of the Richmond Redevelopment Commission pledging tax increment for Project Alma. And I believe we have who speaking?
I will kick us off with an overview of the project. As you'll recall, in 2016, Blue Buffalo located to Richmond and established a 400,000 square foot manufacturing facility here. General Mills acquired the company in 2018 and assumed operations. General Mills is proposing to expand the Richmond site, which would include a new capital investment estimated at $220 million, approximately 50 new full-time production positions, 169,000 additional square feet to expand their processing operations and warehouse capacity, with the addition of an extruder line, 3 new packaging lines, and an associated mix and transfer system. With us today, we have Jason Semler, principal at Baker Tilly, to talk to us about the financial side of this. And then we have Lisa Lee from Ice Miller to talk to us about what has occurred to this point and the next steps for the commission.
Okay.
So invite Jason up at this time.
Good afternoon, Jason. Thank you for
afternoon.
coming.
I believe in your packet you have an analysis that we had put together dated November 22nd. I'll kind of go through that real briefly, kind of explaining kind of a little bit the history, how we got to where we're at today, and then what we're proposing going forward. Does everyone have a copy? Not I can.
It was in our packet, but I can.
I've seen it at council.
As Beth mentioned, in 2016, Blue Buffalo approached the city about locating here in the city and had asked for some incentives. And as part of that negotiation, city and the Redevelopment Commission created an allocation area, the Heartland allocation area, and issued bonds that the company purchased. Those bonds were originally in the amount of $28,619,000. And over time, those bonds have been paid with TIF that has been received. When we originally restructured those bonds, we anticipated those bonds would be paid off in 2041 based upon the investment information that they had provided us. Their investment has come in stronger than what we originally had estimated. And based upon that current revenue stream, we actually anticipate that they would be paid off in 2037. And if you remember right, when we negotiated that deal, we didn't pledge all the TIF. We pledged 100% of the personal property or the equipment investment for the life of the bonds, and then 80% of the real property or the facility through 2028. 100% through 2028, and then after 2028, we only pledged 80% of the tax increment generated from the real property. So if you look on page 2, that's kind of a summary of at the top of the schedule is, based upon current investment, how much we're anticipating pledging, the pledge amount, and if you look at the far right, starting in 2029, we're anticipating about $90,000 of tax increment remaining that you as a board would be able to keep and then use that to pay for capital projects in serving or benefiting the area, similar to what you do now with your other TIF in your downtown TIF area. So that's kind of the current situation, as Beth mentioned, as you collect the tax increment every 6 months, that's pretty much all gets sent to the trustee to pay off the bonds as quickly as possible. As Beth mentioned, now General Mills have approached the city, or they did when they first started looking at doing their expansion, and asked for an additional incentive for that expansion in the building and the equipment line. Through those discussions, we agreed to do another bond issue but only pledged 50% of the tax increment on any of their new investment of the expansion. For equipment, when a company invests in equipment, they have to file a form with the county assessor's office, and that's how their equipment is assessed and how the taxes are determined. It can be done, but it's very difficult to separate the existing investment and the new investment because it all gets commingled into one form. We talked to the company, tried to figure out what was the best way to for both the city to keep costs down, so they didn't have to administrate that every 6 months and do that calculation, and so the company didn't have to file two separate forms. So what we did is we talked about changing that percentage pledge. You know, as I mentioned, it was 100% of the personal property for the life of the bonds and a certain percentage for the real. We decided to just come up with a whole new percentage of what TIF you would pledge toward the outstanding bonds and the new bonds. In order to do that, we needed to kind of change the parameters of the outstanding bonds. We could do that in two ways. We could do a refinancing, which you're probably familiar with. I think we've done that in the past, kind of like refinancing a mortgage. But under that scenario, General Mills would have to come up with the $20 million that's a principal outstanding at the day of closing, so that it actually had to be some cash trading hands. We didn't really want to have to put them that exercise to come, $20 million to get one day and then just get right back the next day. So what we're actually doing is reissuing the 2014 bonds. And to do that, we have to change some parameters of the 2016 bonds. As I mentioned, the 2016 bonds were purchased by the company. They were purchased at a 0% interest rate. So what we decided to do was just change the interest rate on those bonds from 0% to 0.25%. And talking with bond counsel, they felt that was a material enough change to the agreement that allowed us to reissue those bonds. So as I mentioned, there's $20,229,000 of principal outstanding on those bonds. We just recalculated, so now we owe them still $20,229,000, but it's a combination of principal and a little bit of interest. So now the new bonds will have like $19 million of principal plus the interest that they're going to earn. They're still going to get the same amount that they intended to get, and you're going to still reimburse them for the same amount that you intended to pay, no more, no less. It's just the structure is a little different. And that allows us to also change the percentage pledge. Because as I mentioned, for the negotiations for their expansion, we're only pledging 50% of their new investment. So we ran through those numbers, and you can see down at the bottom, those new percentages. You can see down in the middle of the page, the first 2 years for this year, finish this year, pledge 100%, 2025, pledge 100%, but you can see in 2026, which is when the expansion is anticipated to be on the tax rolls, you can see it drops down to 74%. And it's around that 70% until you get to 2036, 2037, it drops off tremendously to 36 or 31 and 26%. And again, that's a combination of looking at the expansion and the original investment. So you can also see, on the left side of that pledge amount, what we're pledging to pay off the 2016 reissued bonds, plus the new bonds, and then you can see on the right side what we're anticipating to be left over for the Redevelopment Commission on an annual basis. So the new bonds, and this is what we're looking at pledging today as well, we're looking at a total bond issue about $16,500,000 is a not-to-exceed amount. Again, that's a parameters. As we've come before you in the past with bond financings, we've always agreed to not to exceed amounts, just in case if something were to change with the numbers. That number is 16.5, but we're really looking at issuing $60,215,000. So again, that pledge there would be enough to cover the 2016 bonds that we've kind of already agreed to, just reissuing it with different parameters. And then the $60,215,000. And then I have some schedules in the back, but it kind of shows how I got to the summary schedule. There was a number of numbers we had to run to get to those new percentages. But in summary, we're really still just pledging the same amount that we did on the 16 bonds and then 50% of the expansion. And again, these bonds are going to be purchased by the company. The only thing pledged towards both of these bonds, just a tax increment from the original investment and the expansion. There's no other pledges from any of the TIF areas or from the city. So just like the original deal, if the revenue doesn't come in as anticipated, they just don't get paid.
So we're looking at two bonds. One is restructured and one is new.
And I think really the only one that you're really approving for is the pledge on the new bonds.
That's actually to both.
That's true.
Because we're restructuring the pledge on this 2016 bonds. So, and I'll show you that in the resolution.
Okay.
So on the resolution, there'll be an exhibit that will kind of replace the old exhibit for the 16 bonds, where it was 100% and 80%. It will be these new percentages.
Okay.
So just like now, when you get your settlement every 6 months, instead of pledging or transferring 100% to the trustee, you'll be basing up on these percentages going forward.
Jason, is there somewhere in there that it shows how much TIF, if it all works like that, is coming back to the Redevelopment Commission for their own use?
Yeah, that's the bottom of page 2 on that right side that I mentioned. You know, starting in 2026, we're estimating that you'll have about $900,000 of revenue remaining that won't be pledged towards the bonds. That'll be at your disposal to fund for projects. So over that 18-year period, we're looking at about almost $27 million of revenue that could come back to the Redevelopment Commission.
Very
I'll
nice.
say.
Yeah, well done. Are there questions for Jason? Thank you very much, Jason. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Jason doesn't like to take credit for his genius, so I have to point it out now and then. So, nice job.
Well done.
Thank you. We're serving as bond counsel to the city on these two, the reissuance and the new bonds. As far as where we've been, we didn't have to make any alterations to the Heartland TIF area like we did in 2016, you may recall. We had to amend the Richmond Redevelopment area to carve out the project parcels and create their own area. We didn't have to do any of that because they're staying within that boundary, so we were able to go straight to the financing piece of this. So we've already been to the Economic Development Commission, who has held a public hearing on the project. They approved their resolution and project report and made a recommendation to the council to move forward with the bond ordinance. The council did that last night. They held their own public hearing and adopted the bond ordinance. So now the final step really is the pledge of the TIF from the Redevelopment Commission. So these other two bodies have acted. So that's why we're here today with Resolution 5-2024. The first recitals, the whereas clauses, are the recitals. Those really just tell the history of amending the Richmond redevelopment area, creating the Heartland area, designating them as a taxpayer. You get down to the fifth and sixth recitals, that's where we start talking about the new bonds. The fifth recital talks about the 2024 bonds and the project that we are looking to finance here. And then the sixth whereas recital just talks about the 2016 and how much they're currently outstanding. Jason did a good job of explaining the difference between a refunding, refinance, and a reissuance. From an IRS perspective, even if they're taxable, we have to have some kind of material change to the underlying terms in order to say we're reissuing the bonds. And then we were able to change the security, as Jason pointed out. So that's what we're doing here. And if you look at Exhibit A, because here's really what you're pledging. You're approving and pledging the priority order and these percentages. It's the very last page of the resolution, Exhibit A.
Is that in the section 3?
It's the last page of.
Here we are.
I'm just going through the percentages here. So I want to go through the priority order as well, because in restructuring, reissuing the 2016 bonds, we're also making that pledge junior to the 2024, the pledge of this TIF to the 2024 bonds. So the priority order is when TIF comes in, and assuming things happen the way they have been and with the expansion we expect them to, the priority really won't matter because it'll never really come into play. But in the event that TIF was less for whatever reason, the first thing to do is pay the debt service on the 2020, the new bonds, the 2024 bonds. Again, the company is going to own both, so they recognize what junior means. The second priority would be to reimburse the company if there's excess over the 2024 debt service for that year. Then they get reimbursed for any debt service that didn't get paid to them on either one of the bonds because of shortfalls. And then the third priority is to pay as much of the 2016 reissued bonds as possible. So there's not really a debt service schedule on the 16. We're going to pay it down as quickly as possible, and with Jason's numbers, it still looks like 2037. So it still looks like you're going to pay those off early, like you were planning to previously. But in this way, you get to finance the expansion, you get more TIF revenue coming to the commission, and the company gets what they were looking for in the deal. So it's wonderful that they work out, when they work out this way. When you have somebody coming back that successfully did the first project, it's a kudos to Beth and her people and the administration for getting this done to this point. Happy to answer questions, but it's pretty straightforward. Again, there's no, as Jason said, there's nothing else that the city pledged. There's no TIF from any of the other city areas pledged to this. It's solely project TIF. So whatever they generate is what we're looking at here.
Sounds like a win-win for everyone.
That's the way we are all looking at it, yes.
Well, bond issues can be very confusing, so I appreciate the explanations from
Absolutely.
both you and Jason. You've made it very clear.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay.
Questions for Lisa? Okay. And do we have anyone else speaking to this resolution? Okay. If there are no further questions, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
I will second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution Number 5, 2024. Would you call the roll, please?
Jenny Lahman,
Yes.
Kathy Lucid,
Yes.
Gary Turner,
Aye.
Allison Zeidel.
Aye.
Gary is idle.
Yeah.
We'll take you.
Motion,
You didn't know.
yeah.
Take him.
Motion, or Resolution Number 5, 2024 is approved. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is Resolution Number 6, 2024, a resolution authorizing the appropriation and expenditure of funds from the Certified Technology Park Fund. And Beth, I believe you're speaking to this one.
Yes. So we're coming to you today as the administrative body for the Certified Technology Park. The infrastructure that we have here that we are assisting with the management of the park has come to the end of life and is needing an upgrade. So this will allow us to upgrade the infrastructure that we have for our information technology system, as well as put some new safeguards and new software in place to help us become more efficient. The total request of the ask is $250,750.
And this is hardware and software.
Yes.
Are we adequately staffed in IT? Do we have enough people?
That would be a question for Tracy Phillips, the director. I can make that.
Ask, because we've got an awful lot of money in this account that would be eligible, I would believe, to cover staff expense, should we think we needed it.
Good point.
I will reach out to him and ask that question.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding this resolution?
How often is all of this replaced? I don't think I remember the last time. I don't know that I was here.
Not quite.
The last time we approved and upgraded this infrastructure was in 2022. So different pieces of equipment have different lifespans, as well as some of this is for quarterly testing that occurs as well.
And is this, did you say, I'm sorry, did you say security is involved in this as well? Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing no further questions, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Would you please call?
Jenny Lauman. Kathy Lucid.
Aye.
Gary Turner.
Aye.
Allison Zeidel.
Aye.
In favor.
Thank you. Resolution number 6, 2024 has passed. Do we have any new business to consider, Beth?
Not at this time. I think just knowing that we will have some community crossings requests coming to the board in January.
Very good. Hearing no further business before the commission, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks.